Hello, Snugglebugs. Welcome to today's Hearthstone card review video. We're going to be starting to review the Whizbang Workshop. Now, I did not review them as they come out. We won't talk about that, I guess. So we're going to start with the Druid cards now that all of the Druid cards have been released, and we'll try to do that with the other classes as the full classes are being released. So here, I think this is a good setup. We're going to start with showing us the Woodland Wonders. So this is a 5 mana summon 2/5. We can see them here. 1/5 Beetles with taunt, but then if you have spell damage, which we'll go over some cards here shortly, this costs 3 less. So obviously for 5, I think this is just not a good card. Honestly, even for 2, I don't really see how good this is going to be, right? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, 2/2/1/5s with taunts, maybe it's because it protects your spell damage, isn't bad, but like, typically, if you wanted to play this as like a tempo or two, like in this case, you're going to have to play something for, if you want to play this on 4 or 5, you're going to have to play a card that costs 2 or 3 that gives you spell damage and then play this to get your taunts. It just feels like 1/5 taunts are really meant for kind of slowing your opponent down from going face, and this maybe, I don't know, it doesn't feel great to me, but that being said, I do know that Druid had some history with other 1/5 plague cards, if you will, if you remember summoning plague beetles and stuff that was actually like super powerful before. So I could be undervaluing this, but at least for 5, this is not good. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what the spell damage package really provides. So speaking of spell damage too, we kind of have another reason why I guess we can see why the spell damage stuff might be going good here. So we have a 3 mana sparkling file that is deal 2 damage, and your next card costs that much less. So you can obviously tell that at least it would make your next card be 2 mana less. So in a way, this is a 1 mana do deal damage, because it's not even just as long as you play it in the same turn, it's like 1 mana deal 2 damage. So it's kind of got the serrated bone spike effective rogue. I think that alone is good enough. I keep feeling bad that I'm going to say, but again, we're going to get into some spell damage cards that is going to make it so you could, bump this up to be doing 4 or 5 damage, and then you get a 5 damage or 5 mana off on another card. Might let you cheat out something big, and I could see that being more important than the damage itself. On top of that, it's just face damage, which, I mean, depending on the Druid deck you're playing, could be valuable. I would rate this card quite highly, personally. Any mana discount stuff is always good, especially when said mana discount stuff can buff itself with other things in your deck. Speaking of which, we have our location, our A location for Druid called Magical Dollhouse. I actually really like the art in this. And as a location that you can just activate, gives you 1 spell damage for the turn, so you can play it on 1 and sit on it until you need it. Which, if we go back real quick to this card, could mean that in theory, you wait and you play this on 3, it's at least a 3 mana deal 3 and get a 3 mana discount, which you rotate again. Very similar to Serrated Bone Spike. And then you could use it multiple times. So if you have different spells, it's kind of makes it in a way feel like you don't have to worry about OTKing your opponent with spell damage. And then we have here a new dragon, 4 mana 2/4 Chia Drake. It is miniaturized, so we can take a look at the card you get as a 1/1 version of it with basically the exact same effect. So for 4 mana, you can either choose one to gain spell damage +1, which goes along with all the other spell damage kind of stuff we've talked about, or draw a card. But I think here you'd probably likely, and now I could be wrong, but you'd probably likely draw your card with the 4 mana version, and then when you get the miniaturized one, you could use it as a 1 mana way to get spell damage later, which means, of course, if you save the 1 mana miniaturized versions here and get 2 of them, and you add it to your Owl and Owlonius and all the other stuff, you could get a really big board of spell damage and punch your opponent in the face really hard. Yeah, I think this is just a good card, both because it's flexible, the miniaturize, obviously 4 mana 2/4 isn't super strong, but again, we're talking like it's a dragon as well, which could mean that it can play into the dragon decks, which probably just means it fits pretty well. So yeah, you can do it over time. So a 1 mana, you play it, and you kind of just leave it until you need it card. Of course, it'll depend on if you have room in your deck, but anything that plays spell damage for 1 mana, effectively +3 because you can use it 3 times, I think it's going to be good. So if the package doesn't work out at all, I think this would still be played for things like your swipes or the card I just showed you. Like if the whole spell damage package doesn't work, this will still be used, I think. So this is highly rated. Again, I don't do the star system just because I don't keep track. I haven't really yet. I know some people have asked me to, but this is definitely a highly rated card in my opinion. And then we can look at the Bottomless Toy Chest, a 2-mana spell, arcane, another arcane spell. Discover a card from your deck, and if you have spell damage, you copy it. So you could activate that location. Technically, even if you don't use it to get spell damage, you could use it to, get 2 copies of a different spell in your deck, right? Like, that's pretty good. I'm glad they left it at 2 at the most. Instead of a classic spell damage improves this and you get a whole handful of a spell if you had multiple spell damage. But again, 2 mana, get something from your deck. That's straight out of Priest. Priest would play this in a heartbeat. You add spell damage and it becomes the sort of like the forged Priest card that gives you 2 copies of a minion when you play it. So like for 2 mana with the spell damage tag giving you something that might cost 4 mana and Priest. Of course, Priest is minion, is a spell, so be that as it may. But also very strong. Could even lead into a, sorry to rant a bit, but if you have a bunch of spell damage on the board, it could lead into you using this to discover 2 copies of Sparkling Vial. You cast 1 Sparkling Vial for, let's say, even a small amount of 5 damage. That leads into your second Sparkling Vial being free, or whatever. Then you have Moonbeam or something like that. I think Moonbeam's still going to be in rotation. Could be wrong. I apologize. But yeah, so I feel like there could be OTK potential with this package, and Bottomless Toy Chest will go a long way in getting copies of those spells that will do damage. So we have our legendary for this spell damage package, Owlonius, which I think is a fantastic card. I love the little owls and all that stuff. It's spell damage +1. Sorry, I started doing weird things with my mouth. So it is a 7-mana 6/6 with spell damage +1, and your spells get double the bonus from spell damage. So like right away, it's effectively +2, but of course it can't say +2 because let's say you had the location. It makes the location +2. This is +2. It's the fact it costs 7 is really good, because if this was if people can learn how to cheat this out, it's gonna be nuts. I'm not even nuts. I don't know. Like, you have the location alone. Like I said, you get this. You do the thing where you play the 1/3 mana stuff. It gives you something else that you can play for cheap, and then you just burn your opponent down. So Druid has a lot of ways typically to keep their hand full, which, yeah, I feel like this is going to be dangerous. This is going to stack so fast, like Sith Mage levels of dangerous, in my opinion, or more. We'll see. I mean, I'm rating this very highly. I'm not looking forward to playing against it, but it's going to be a good card. And the second legendary, so, I mean, maybe I should have saved this for the end, but that's okay. I'm just kind of going in order of what they have them on their website here for right now. But second legendary for Druid, I am a bit more interested in, being someone who loves more like drawn out long gameplays. We have the Sky Mother Aviana, so it's the new Aviana for Druid, which is a 6-mana 5/5 battle cry, shuffle 10 random legendary minions into your deck, and they cost 1. So it just thickens your deck, but with cheap legendaries. So they're going to be random, so you could get some bad ones, you could get some really good ones, could get duplicates as far as I'm aware. But I just like the idea of it. I like the idea of putting stuff into your deck that gives you value later. It's really slow, obviously, on turn 6. So like on 6, it does nothing effectively to the board, so you have to play it when you're in a good board state. I'm only going to say that this is like going to be a middle-of-the-road card just because of those reasons, but I'm going to be enjoying it. That's all I can really say. The next up, we have the Wind Up Sapling, a 2-mana 2/1 with tradable, which I'm glad that they are continuing to add more tradable cards, which is Battlecry, refresh 1 mana crystal, and then you actually trade to upgrade this. So like 2/1 refreshes a mana crystal. Obviously, a single mana crystal is probably not going to get you very far, unless you have a 1-mana card. But like, you just start cycling this away early game when you have like the 1 mana left and you draw it, and then maybe late game. I can't imagine you trade this too many times. But let's say even 3 or 4, right? We know the dragon exists today. That gives you 4 mana back, and it's huge. Imagine having that kind of tied to a 2-mana body that has the versatility of being tradable until you need it. I can just see this being used in a lot of decks. Tradable makes I'm breathing heavy. I apologize. I'm kind of rushing my speech, maybe a little bit too much in this, but tradable is just a very good card, or a good keyword for tech cards. So, like, if you don't ever find you need the refresh, like I said, you just trade it, and then eventually it's valuable. And worst case scenario, you got the value from effectively using your excess mana to cycle to get cards you need. So I think this is going to be also quite strong. Druid's looking pretty good. Now, I think a lot of people are giving too much credit, and I have seen a few people talking about Jade Display already. I know I haven't made my review, I'm obviously doing it now, but it is a 1 mana 1/1 that when it dies, it gives all other. It's kind of like Automaton for Priest, except it has to be dead, and then it shuffles more copies into your deck. So I'm sure someone is going to find a way to really abuse this and get a bunch of copies, but people are comparing it to like the Jade Idols of old, which there was like, unless I'm mistaken, this is like the only way to get these Jade displays. There might be something, again, I might be missing, so let me know in the comments down below. But it's just really slow. By the time you get out multiple of these, yes, it makes it so you should, unless someone silences you, win the fatigue war, which is pretty nice, but I don't think this is going to be anywhere near as powerful as Jade Idols, as an example, because there's just whole deck packages effectively built around the Jades then, versus just sort of a single card that, I mean, don't get me wrong, 1 mana was good, but I don't see this being a bad card, and I'm certainly going to want to give it a try myself, but I don't think it's going to be what people think it is, which is the Jades of old. Now, I do admit I have to agree on this Ensmallen card being quite strong. I could be overestimating its value, but a 3 mana spell that reduces the cost and attack of minions in your deck by 1. So yes, it reduces the attack of your minions in your deck by 1, but like, let's be real. Like, I'm going to take a really bad example for a second. Or no, you know what, let's take a really good example. Let's go with Riestraza, right? It costs 8 mana today, 8/8. What does it matter if it's a 7/8? Right? But making it cost 7 mana, get it out of turn sooner. You can start playing some of your smaller stuff that's like 3, 4, 5 mana. You can play 2 of them in a turn instead of 1 of them. I think that's going to be really good. I think, honestly, probably just because that's where my head is at, like a Reno, Dragon Druid type thing within small, and has so much value that that one attack lowering is nothing. And this will just make it that much better. Now, that being said, 3 mana, turn 3, do nothing, means against certain opponents, you just can't play it, right? So you have to take that in consideration and that strength. Against certain opponents, this is just a dead card, because if you skip your whole turn 3 without a guaranteed follow-up the next turn, you could just be dead on turn 4 or 5, or you could just lose. So in the right matchups, this will win you games, and then in the wrong matchups, it'll be a dead card. So you saw the first warrior card pop up there. I might be able to edit that, but maybe not. But yeah, so that is it for the Druid cards. I will say, from my opinion, I'll go back just because. Here we are. I'm not looking forward to playing against Spell Druid, admittedly. It's I mean, luckily the Solar Eclipse and Lunar Eclipses are gone, but I just, being OTK'd by a minion, like I said, it's going to be Sif 2.0 and 2 different decks, and bleh, not my cup of tea. But I am really looking forward to Sky Mother Aviana. So let me know in the comments down below, what are you looking forward to, not looking forward to, as far as the Druid cards goes in the next set. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the review in the next review.